I don't have any extra sheets for people that walked in. Sorry. Yeah, I don't. Morning. Oh, that's so cute. So I not that anybody follows along, but we did the first 3 Beatitudes. And if you were able to get time alone and to think about what they were saying and kind of what they meant, they're really in direct contrast to maybe what we've been taught about the world. You know, God, Jesus said, you know, the favored position is the ones who are poor in spirit, which doesn't make any sense to anybody. Because, you know, I walk down the street and I see a dude eating out of a Hardee's trash can. I don't think to myself, oh, you know, that guy's got the inside lane. But Jesus seemed to have that kind of, he was trying to be provocative. He was trying to push away the world's values, trying to say that you're understanding, you're like him, but you don't see it because you've clouded over who you are with stuff and money. And I like stuff and I like money. So it's not bagging on him. What Jesus was trying to do is to get you to understand your need for God and not to rely on for security and comfort on things or prestige or business or whatever. Good things. But sometimes the temptation is when you have a lot of good things is to get lost in them and your identity and your value in life become them. And especially as you get older like me, you start to think about what would if I lost them, what would happen? Who would I be? What would go on? And so the notion is, and the meek shall inherit the earth, the ones that can't be heard, the quiet ones, the ones who are unimportant will inherit the earth, which is a cool inheritance. I mean, if you're at the will and you get some gold and you get some this and oh yeah, you get the earth. It's like, okay, I'll deal with that. But it's, again, to knock you off, it really is disturbing. If you listen to those first 3 Beatitudes, and it starts, so I said, you know what, this week I'm going to do a little balance. We're going to talk about balance. Hello, cutie. And so I found a picture of Cutie's dad. Chris is up there. Outdoor guy. It's just this is what it becomes like in life, right? Like you want to do everything so correctly when you're moving, and especially with God and things like that, you're afraid to take a misstep. Like if you misstep, you're gone. And we do that to ourselves. We do that to ourselves, and it felt like when Jesus was doing that, he's trying to push us off the wire. Like, what do you mean poor people have an inside track? What do you mean that all of everything that I've worked for isn't valid? What do you mean? And that's not where he's going with that. When you're following Jesus, this isn't balance. And balance is a big word. I know a pastor, he just went through it as balance in your Christian life. And I get it. You don't want to overwork too much, and you don't want to overplay too much, and you don't want to overeat too much, and you don't want to drink too. So I get that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about things that affect your relationship with God, and this sort of balance plays no role in that. This is the only balance that matters with God. Because, see, balance is about control. You're doing your darn best to control your environment to make sure that you appear how you want to appear. To make sure you dress right. And you know what I mean? This is balance in the Christian life. You give your control to God. you give your control to God. And the hands are dirty not with sin, but with work and with life, with bumps, with twists, with turns. It's where you just do the best you can with your life, knowing that God is in control. Doing prayer. Well, we just did. And the hands are dirty. You can't play in the mud and not get dirty. Your sins are forgiven. Your sins are washed away when you intentionally try to hurt people, when you intentionally, whatever you intentionally do. But you're still dirty. We still live. It's still hard. And there's a lot of hard situations that we go through. And Jesus had a great quote in Mark 6, I think it's on your paper. Him and his disciples were reporting back on what was going on. We did this. And there was a bunch of people milling around, and everybody wanted a piece of Jesus. And the disciples, like, this is the new thing. And Jesus, he said to his apostles, he said, you know what? You guys, let's get out of here. Come with me by yourselves. Let's go to a quiet place. Let's get some rest. We're not checking out. I'll be back. Show will go on. But right now, we need to just rest. We need to just be quiet. And I think about that with prayer, especially because, we're called to call into a prayer closet. That's why you go in your prayer closet, and there's one that says, and lock the door. Which means leave your phone outside the prayer closet. In the morning, I try to pray, and I have to have my phone there because the bus people love to tell you, hey, it's foggy out there. It's like, yeah, duh. Be careful. No, sorry. I hope she doesn't see that. Thank you for all those updates. But I have to bring it in, and you're there praying, God, this is the truest, deepest part of my heart. Ding. What? Just like the world will do. But that's important to go away and be quiet and to rest. It's just, that's balance. That's balance. And you can't, you know what I mean? And it's specifically to be with God. It's not just, go away and whatever you like to do. It's an intentional act about God. We all need vacations because in the world, you work, you get a vacation. Bingo, good. But with God, it's time with Him. That's your balance. Because He's God and we're not. And we're humans. And so Jesus just said. And so this is quite what I think He means too. You have your prayer closet with you're alone. And I Googled images, my software image. I just said Bible study. And this popped up. And I said, okay, I don't see any Bibles there. But that guy kind of has a book. He's taking notes. That dude with the sunglasses is my hero. It's like he's sleeping. I already know because that's what I'd be doing. But it's just getting together and talking about God. That's talking about God. No authorities. No, you don't have to worry about anything, especially in a setting like this. Spill something, someone comes and cleans it up. And they say, no problem, I'll get you another drink. You can eat, no problem. But you're there, the main thing is we're all expressing ourselves. And when I mean quiet and restful, you mean peace. And that's the opposite of controlling everything. The pressure to control versus the pressure of peace. And the pressure of peace is when you're relaxed and peaceful. You feel like you got to be doing something. World told me. But it goes bigger because you have your small group, and that's how big churches survive is through a small group ministry because you can't mingle with 25,000 people. You got to have 8 people that you know and can talk with. But it goes to the church. The small groups get together. But it's the same thing. We're together for God. The church is supposed to be a quiet place. And I don't mean not talking or music. What I mean is a settled place where it's peaceful, where you can rest. The demands are left outside the door. We can talk to God as a group. As a unit, we can, what we think we, as a group, what we're doing in the world, we can contemplate and pray to God about. And they're all standing. They're all standing in this picture. When in Acts 2, and I think I put this on your paper too, when the very first followers of Jesus became the very first followers of Jesus, like 3,000 of them on Pentecost, and then right after that, what happened was, these are the 4 things that their group focused on. These are like the 4 core elements of what they thought was important. And the first one was the apostles' teaching, which today we're going through Mark. We have a lot of Mark scriptures. Mark wasn't an apostle, just so you know. What they think, he traveled with Peter, and Peter told him stuff, and he wrote down what Peter said. So, just so you know, so no one comes up after and said, well, Mark wasn't an apostle. We're studying what the followers of Jesus wrote back when it first happened. And that's important. It says somewhere in the Bible, or it says that John wrote, he said, if you have fellowship and joy with us, then you have fellowship and joy with Jesus, because we've been appointed to take that role. And so we believe their messages. Living life together, koinonia, was the second focus. Okay, we're Jewish, we're in Jerusalem, and we're not Jewish anymore. So they had to figure out how to live their lives together. And it's been obscured in our culture because we're American and we live in the United States, but we're not part of the United States anymore. We only do it, it's like Christians in China. I'll take an opposing view, it's easier to see. They live in China, they may support the Chinese government, but they're not from China. It says, live like you're citizens of heaven. And that's what it means. You've been taken out of one kingdom, it says, and put into another kingdom. Not bad-mouthing any kingdoms, not bad-mouthing anything, but the reality is that you're a new creature. And so you figure out together why we meet. How to live life in this culture as followers of Jesus. What does that mean? What does that mean? And meals. In the Bible, if Christians get together, it's like a Baptist thing. There's a pot of baked beans somewhere. That's what Christians do. Because in that culture, eating was you didn't eat with anybody. Eating was special. It was intimate. And I don't know why. I'll eat with whoever asks me. It doesn't matter if you're paying, especially. But then it was a different thing. And so that's why it's stressed so much in the Bible. And when they got together, they made sure they ate together. And prayer, what we've been talking about. Not just prayer intimate yourself, but prayer corporately. Prayer corporately. And these were the focuses of what it meant to be a follower of Jesus back when they first started. And I think we've obliterated most of them. We're learning from Mark today, but our living life together isn't as solid. We show up, and I'm not bagging on it. This is our culture. This is our culture. I'm not mad at it. This is not criticism, sarcastic. It's just a reality of how we live. They didn't drive cars, okay? They didn't live 50 miles away from where they worked. All those stuff. They didn't have computers and texts and all that stuff. No, it's just reality. We are not allowed to eat in church. Heaven forbid we bring a Big Mac into a church. Like that's sacrilegious. What's sacrilegious, I didn't bring you one. That's why you're upset. But it's silly, and I know, but that's our culture. We've deified the building, and we've deified the environment, and somehow it's not sacred if we bring food in here. And it's our culture. It's our culture. It's not a rule. In prayer, we pray, or I pray. And if I ask someone else to pray, they say, I don't like praying in public. I don't like praying out loud. Because I said that. And I still say it, but I get paid, so what the heck? You know what I mean? We do this. Can I bring food? I'm thinking, okay, what if someone walks into your church? Just stopped at Hardee's, got the killer meal, and they show up at church. and they just notice. They're on can I bring this in? I just thought, I stopped by and I thought I'd like to know God. Oh. And they get in here and people are giving them like, don't you know this is a sacred space? Can't you tell by all the pews and all the quietness and how nobody looks at each other? We just look ahead at a fat old bald Irish dude. I just wanted to hear about Jesus. The whole balance and control thing. It forces people into that. The law forces people onto the rope. You must follow these rules. And the laws in church are the worst. But that's where you put the person up on, it's not prayer anymore, it's, I got to do everything right. What if I wear the wrong clothes? What if I do this wrong? And all of a sudden you're questioning yourself. You want to learn about Jesus, but all you get is a heavy dose of why you're not good. And your instincts are wrong. And if you don't get with the herd, we're going to ignore you and look at you. Right? I mean, that's kind of what the rope is about. The church we went to, this hopefully demonstrates something of it. We went to a church. We were pastor and team. When I say pastor, I mean me and Clara. And so it was Communion Sunday, the day for Communion Sunday, and our normal communion person couldn't make it. So a dude that I know, and I'm not using his name in case he watches, even though he'll know who it is, and he'll write me a letter, but he wouldn't. But so the dude, I'll call him John, because that's an average name. John, it was his turn to do it. And so we get there, we're in the kitchen, we're getting ready, to do the bread and the wine, and, juice, and get it all ready. And we open the refrigerator door, and there's no red grape juice. Communion Sunday, no red grape juice in a Christian church. John was not happy. Not happy at all. We had apple juice. We had white grape juice. We had tomato juice. We had water. We had milk. We had soda. We had every other liquid form under the planet in that refrigerator. No, it had to be red grape juice. First thought to me is, okay, we'll do it next week. No, it's Communion Sunday today. He's just frantic. So he runs down in his small town, goes down to the store, 3 minutes away. They didn't have any grape juice either. Like, oh, he comes back. He got grape jelly. You know what he did? He got a big pitcher, stuck the grape jelly in there, poured water in, started turning it as fast as he could. We're going to have communion if it kills me. We called somebody, and it looked so, I wouldn't have drank that stuff. I wouldn't have drank that stuff. It's crazy. It's a tightrope. Where you take communion to remember that Jesus died and gave his life for us. Who cares what you drink? Who cares what you eat, that stupid little cracker that they call a meal? Jesus died for us, so we didn't have to go through that. We don't have to worry about it. It's practically dinner theater now, the way it is. Learning lines, learning places. Am I supposed to do this? It doesn't matter. It's a representation. It's bread and wine, and God accommodates our futile, small attempts to honor him. Whatever you do, God will accommodate it because he loves you. He would die for you. Hey, and I get it. I'm not mad at John. It's to me, it was kind of funny. Because I'm like, I'll take soda. I don't really care. Why don't we really have wine? Hey, there's a thought. That's what they really drank. Can't drink wine, not in church. That's sacrilege. You know what I mean? It shows up. It's called stress and anxiety and fear and all those things. And we think we're on it when it's just putting our hands together at any moment for balance, not making it across the rope. This concept Jesus taught, and I think I wrote it in your thing somewhere, but the Sabbath was made, they were talking about the Sabbath. Critics of Jesus were like, you don't do the Sabbath correctly. You have to use red grape juice. And Jesus told them, he said, the Sabbath was made for the needs of the people. The people weren't created so that they could meet the requirements of the Sabbath. I didn't create the Sabbath first as some kind of thing that you had to bow to. Communion was given to us as a gift so that spiritually it strengthens us. It strengthens our hearts. It strengthens our relationship with what's real about Jesus and what's real about the truth about the world and the truth about our spirits and who we are. He didn't create communion first and then create people so that we could do it with red grape juice as substituting wine and little pieces of cracker. Well, sorry, Christie's communion's the best I've ever had, but it's still not a meal, and that's what communion was, the Lord's Supper. And they put the supper in there for a reason. And they took a time in the middle to celebrate Jesus' death with their bread. In fact, yeah. You understand? We are free. We follow Jesus. We believe in Jesus. When we go to church and it's peaceful and it's quiet, like this church. And that's a cool roof. We were in a church like it had a roof like that. I just noticed that earlier. I have a feeling that wire just keeps messing with me. Anyway, cool church, giant thing. I think there's enough pews in this church. I could have put a few more in, I think, if I had tried. I love the history of pews. Just cracks me up. We had a church. How many churches have we been to? It's like, I promise it's church. We had a church divided, big church divided because of pews versus chairs. It's in like one of the richest zip codes up there in California. And it was 4 miles away. We went there because we had kids and they had a killer kids program, just like everyone else. But they hired a guy. They had pews, like a big auditorium. They had pews. And so they hired people up there, did everything at the top. I'm not joking. This is a retired businessman living in the richest part of Southern California. You don't play there. If you're going to do something, you do something. So they got this guy, a pastor, and they said, you know what? Look into it. What's better for us? Pews? What's the best way to get this church? Pews are old, stinky. We need to do something. He took 8 months figuring this thing out. It was his decision. 8 months working on it. He said, you know what? Chairs. I found the perfect chairs. Had the chairs put in. Like 35% of the people bolted, took off. I love you guys. You're my brothers and sisters. Joy and unity in Christ. Chairs? I'm out of here. Hug it out, baby. Hug it out. It's like, it was silly. But so are all churches. After you look at it, when you're far down the line, you realize there had to be, something happened. Something happened. Satan got in there. Anyway, the history of pews is this. Pews are only like 500 years old in churches. Jesus started in 2000. 2,000 years later. So pews only came in line about 500 years ago. And what happened is this was empty. This was empty. And they had benches around the sides for people who were tired or hurt or needed benches. But their whole liturgy, the whole mass or service was based on this weird movement and these weird things. And it was just weird. But then the Reformation happened. And it started where they got bald Irish dudes to just start talking. And people are like, I can't really stand as long as you can talk. And they said, well, you know what? We'll move the benches into the middle where we used to have our things, and we'll just start putting them there because it's more important for you to listen to me than to listen to each other. because I'm the talent. Let's face it. That was a joke. Some are like, wow, he's really arrogant. And so they started putting pews in, and people started like, you'll never believe this, they started claiming spots as their own. And so there were people there with power and influential who did not like that. So they came up with an idea. They built pew boxes. Yeah, well, that way, this is box number 59 at a church. And so they built boxes where all those other pews were. They built boxes down the line and on the sides. Well, probably not as far to the sides as we are, but they built them down the thing. And then they put a few pews in the back for the poor people, because what they found out is the people up front would pay for them. They would lease them from the church. You could hand it off as inheritance to your kids. We are box 59. And that's the killer box. And they put the pulpit like way up there so they could look down in the boxes, because people build walls. There's pictures of ones with fireplaces, paintings. I mean, just kids could crawl around. Nobody cared. You know, and it was the boxes. Pretty cool. But people complained because they wanted to sit in 59, and they didn't think it was fair that someone could buy or lease a pew. You know, it was weird when new people showed up. And so they just started building the regular pews. The Catholics got a hold of it. Roman Catholics got a hold of it. And then they took it from the Protestants. And then it came over here, and the Protestants really focused in. And what happens is you get a whole bunch of pews. And here, I'm going to read, this is from 1995. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it would bore you. It's an Orthodox writer. Orthodox churches are off the hook crazy. But it's all this stuff. But he's talking about the liturgical effectiveness of pews. What does that mean? No clue. But he's talking about, why do we have pews in churches? Because the history he came from, they didn't have pews. It says, and some of the things, I'm going to just read what I highlighted, because it's a cool thing. It says, do pews and pew-like rows of chairs make a significant difference in the life of a church? That's kind of his premise. Do pews affect the way you think about Jesus? Do pews affect the way you think about life? Because we're here for life. Or is it just a cultural thing? He said, pews teach the lay people, you guys, to stay in their place, which is passively watch what's going on up front. That was one of his arguments. That you don't realize that my work is your work. That we're all the same. And that it starts to turn into, pews serve the same purpose as seats at theaters or bleachers in the ballpark, where you just sit and watch the dudes do their thing. And you begin to think that's life. As I move from one chair to another chair, to another chair, to another chair, to watch, sleep. Yeah, exactly. This is his argument, it's not my argument. But it's just nice to know that Christians think. Isn't it? That they don't just do what they're told and act the way they're supposed to act. It's kind of refreshing. It sounds like freedom within the realm. We don't want anarchy. We want freedom as Christians. Only when we're Christians. We don't expect freedom from the world. Pews destroy the traditional feeling of freedom in the church. I don't know. Do they? Do they? I mean, you're all facing me. I go back to the 4 tenets of the first ones and of what the original Christians were like, and I'm like, wow, there's different. And again, it's cultural. That's what you have to understand. We've chosen to do this to our church. We chose to put pew boxes in. And I saw Nathan sitting over there, and I'm like, that's the first guy I saw ever take that seat. And then I realized it's the closest to the coffee machine and the bathroom and the escape. I'm like, because at first I'm like, well, we'll charge him less because he can't see anything. This is the hot spot. And then I thought, well, you know what? He's got an angle there. We might charge him the most because he's out of here quickest. And he gets coffee. But that, you know what I mean? Pews fill up open space in the middle of our temples and churches where the clergy and the people used to join together in a sort of sacred dance. And we can't even conceptualize in our mind what that might be because we were brought up like this. Get here, sit in your seat, don't eat, shut up, and I'll tell you when to talk. I'll tell you when to pray. In fact, I don't trust you praying. I'm praying for you because I'm Irish. Isn't there a sense of that? Isn't there a sense? And I'm just thinking like someone I come into church, I've been going to church my whole dang life. I don't care. Yeah, of course it's pews. I was going to Catholic school before I even knew I was probably with a diaper on. So it's all good to me. But I just can't help feeling that this is what it is when you walk in. And we wonder why our churches are empty. I don't want to go to a place like this where you just sit there. Do you know what I mean? I'm just thinking off the top of my head as somebody who just walked in 2024 to a church. Where's the balance? Where's the balance? And you don't know if you're sitting in the wrong chair or if you're in the right spot, and you don't want to sit too close because maybe they'll call on you to give blood or dance. And you know what I mean? Just is an uncomfortable feeling. Unless you grew up in it. And then it's like, gosh, mother's milk. The music, the pews. And the key is that Jesus finished it all. We can do anything we want inside of this space. Whatever we think is the best for people looking for Jesus, we can do it in here, given our resources. Anything. There is no law against there are standards in the community that we have to pay attention to because, I ain't even going there. There's anything. We can make this look like and be like and attract. We're not caring what they think. What I want, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and not here. Here is pretty set. But if I walk into a room, Marriott spends billions of dollars to say, well, when you walk into the lobby, how do they feel comfortable? That's where greeters come from. Christians should have handed it to the hospitality industry, but the hospitality industry handed it to Christians. Dude, you're new? Killer. Hey, of course they're scared. Satan doesn't want them to learn about Jesus. Satan doesn't want them changing their life. Satan doesn't want to see transformation and value shifts, especially if they have kids and they start generational Christianity. And they don't want any of that. They want you to be scared. They want you to feel like an outsider. They want you to think that the talk that the people are saying, you don't know the words. They can barely hear the words as there are. They're on a tightrope. They're on a tightrope. Because they're losing control. The act of going to God is giving your control over to Him. That's what prayer is. That's what prayer is. And this is our goal in a church, in your prayer closet, in your life, in everything you do. It's to love God with all your heart, all your mind, and all your strength. And love your neighbor as yourself. That's everything. No, there's no level of following Jesus where this doesn't apply, where this isn't the foundation, where this isn't your guardrails. You can use metaphor, 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 metaphor. This is all it is. Love God, and you're free to love God any way you want. Where you have the second commandment there. love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus said the second one's just as important as the first one. In fact, you can't do the first one without doing the second one. Paul said, if you can do whatever you want, if you don't love other people, then you're not doing anything. You're joking with yourself. It almost puts number 2 above number 1, but you don't do that because that's someone trying to sneak into your relationship with Jesus. This is the balanced life. This is the balanced life. This is your balance. This is your escape. This is going to the one who knows you. This gets rid of all the tightropes in life. And I don't want anybody bringing in a Big Mac next week unless you got one for me. And it's all good. It's like, I forgive you. You know what I mean? This is your balance. This is where you give control of the tightrope act to Jesus. And you let it go. Let it go. Because there's no value there. You can look good, and you might get paid to join a circus. But in terms of real life and real value, that's the good life right there. And I'm going to leave that up as a slide as we sing. Sorry, Donna. And I'm turning off my mic so I don't have to be heard.